Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. We are your hosts, Rashid and Rashid, and this is Beyond the Headlines, a weekend edition of our podcast. Hey, Rashid, how's it going today with you?
It's it's going the way things are going around the world. We're in good company.
so, so, what's on the news that intrigues you at this moment?
The devastation of those spiritual weapons that the God is using on America. Florida
Yeah,
is devastated,
yeah,
and the wife was telling me on the news that South Carolina is devastated too.
yeah, yeah. You know, uh, I think most Americans they don't take the time out to put things in a proper perspective, so they don't connect dots and they don't realize that God they say they believe in a God. They say they believe in justice. They say they believe in freedom. They say they believe in judgment. And they don't take the time to 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 look at these events when we have these major earthquakes, major floods, wildfires, mudslides, sinkholes, rain, storms, whatever. They don't think in terms of connecting it with the behavior of the American citizens and the American government. And I believe that is one of the biggest mistakes that the Republic of America makes, because she thinks that exceptionalism, as we constantly say, that I am not to be punished for the evil and the wicked stuff that I've done, but everybody else can be punished. I am not to be beaten because I'm the most powerful military on the planet. And she doesn't realize that God has set his military against her and that this is reaping what you sown. Now, those people may not have been involved in the bombing of Afghanistan or the bombing of Libya or the bombing of Syria or the mistreatment of black, brown, red, and yellow people here. But they are a part and they believe in the system. Therefore, they have been punished as a retribution for some of the policies that the American government has um, pushed over on the people. I know you want to say something. Go ahead and say something.
They benefit from the system.
Right,
You say you might not be a practicing of the religion of America, but you benefit from it. You were taught by it, of the institutions. You think, you listen to their media. You think the way they think, and the way they think is they can get away with everything, and they are the ones that's supposed to do the punishment. I can get away with stuff, and I have been ordained to do the punishment, push out the punishment to everybody else that don't conform to what I say.
right,
If I say you're guilty, then I say you're guilty. Like I've
right,
said before, it's like the emperor's new clothes, right? Everybody know that the emperor didn't have no clothes on, but the concept of the most powerful one around, he can get away with it. He can
right,
get away with making you believe his lie. Like what's going on with this Ukraine. If you listen to the Western world, any minute the Ukrainian army is going to march all the way up to Moscow, go inside the Kremlin and drag Putin out and hang him on a lamppost or the
right,
old willow tree or whatever. But that's the emperor's new clothes, right? That's the lie that they're making everybody. In real terms, it's the other way around.
right,
Putin and them haven't even started to attack. Most of the people who've been fighting in the Ukraine has been the
the
militias of
malicious.
the militias, the Wagner group that paid hired mercenaries, a few Chechens, and a few, but they are the most uh, 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 Russian soldiers, regular soldiers. They haven't even started to attack him yet. As I
Mm-mm.
said before, once the empire goes in and commits war on a country, she goes in and bombs the infrastructure. She bombs the electrical plants. She bombed the water desalination pumping stations. She bombed the centers of In other words, she crashes your society. Russia
Mm-hmm.
haven't done that with them.
Right.
They still allowing the Ukrainians electrical system to take troops from Kiev and bring them all the way over into Donbass to commit war with them. You be
Mm-hmm.
thinking, say, what? That don't make. Why is he not doing that? Russia, what they should have done, anybody with any sense, is come down from Belarus, come down to the Polish border, put a whole lot of troops in there, and then put up a no-fly zone. And then the Kiev would have been done tomorrow, but they're not doing that. They're not
Mm-hmm.
doing that. And as we said before, the Russians really don't want to go to war with Ukraine. They're fighting this war with one hand tied behind their backs.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're being dragged into this conflict against their will. They still have not used 10% of their military capability. This is what gets left out of the media and the Western press. Russia has yet to use 10% of its military capabilities, but they're trying. See, there's a power struggle going on. It's some you have these people who want to reorientate themselves towards the east, and they say, hit them, let's get this over with, let's get it, and if NATO continues to do it, then hit outside of Ukraine on those military bases that are in NATO countries. Then you have a few people that are saying, well, let's give the West just a little bit more. And what you have in Vladimir Putin, he's the balancer of those on that National Security Council. He's trying to balance out the thing, but sooner or later the pressure will become too immense.
Because NATO is not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with the pushing of war toward Russia. This is what they have to come to realize. The NATO and the West, they are out to destroy Russia completely. So you have to go. You can't fight a war halfway. You got to be all in.
See, when America fights the war, she doesn't care if you say these are atrocities, war crimes. These are this. She just goes in. The first thing she does is take out the most vital assets to the country. The second thing she does is hit every government institution that helps to maintain that place as a viable society. Then she goes in and secures all. She sends her troops in thereafter when there's not enough resistance, air defense resistance. The troops go in, and then they secure all of the major banks or mineral resource areas. Russia is still hoping that
against hope.
they're hoping that it'll be a military coup, and their Slavic brothers will see the light that they're being used as cannon fodder.
Some way possible that the Ukrainians will wake up tomorrow and say, America, you're bad, get out. And that's not going. That's not the. They put all of their people in charge. He got to realize that. But the realization is coming to him. He see that they're not going to do it, and with this pipeline blowing up, he see that the empire is out to totally destroy Russia completely. The empire not playing around. The empire is losing its base. It sees that somebody else is trying to replace her in the rulership of the world. And the empire is very mad about that. And she say that she ready to blow up the whole world if she can't rule.
That's right. And we see that in her book. But in that goes back to the acronym of her stated military policy, which is MAD. That is her doctrine, brothers and sisters, and those of you who are watching. America's policy, since she has acquired nuclear weapons, is the MAD doctrine. Mutually assured destruction, meaning if I can't rule, I'm not going to leave Earth in any position for anybody else to rule. I'm taking everybody out if I can. And this is why she's mad at what's going on in South America. This is why she's mad at what's going on in Central America, Africa, Asia, and in the Eurasian area. And this is why it is absolutely vital in her thoughts to antagonize China, to continue to push Russia, because as long as she's pushing and she's not feeling the heat, she's going to continue to push. This is one thing that has to be put in these people's minds, that the leadership of America is irrational. And if you have irrational leaders, you cannot bring rational thought and rational conversation to irrational minds. Think about this, just to give you an example. When a person is hysterical and a person is totally in fear, or a person is totally angry, it is hard to get through to them. When you are in a calm state, it's hard. So sometimes when that person is irrational, you have to smack them, grab them and shake them and let them know what time it is. That is what it's going to take for Russia to get the U.S. off of its neck. She's going to have to smack her. She's going to have to shake her. And she's going to have to hit her to let her know. Not just in words. This is going to have to be a physical interaction, because the empire knows no bounds. They do not respect international law. See, the Russian leadership thinks that if they play by international law and the international rules, then the world is looking at them playing by this, and the world is looking at America doing what she's doing. That still has not stopped America from doing what she's doing. Okay, it comes to a point when you're playing by these international rules and laws, and the empire continues to do what she's doing, and sometimes you have to tell everybody, I've shown you that she's irrational. Now I have to react because my safety is at stake. So now I have to be a little bit irrational with her. And the only time that America ever comes to the negotiating table is if she feels that you have the advantage. If you have the advantage, she wants to negotiate.
That's when she decides to come. When you getting in her butt. Other than that, I don't have to negotiate about anything. Yeah. Remember, I'm the king. I'm the king.
And I will continue to supply weapons. I'll continue to do this, and I'll continue to do that. And notice, every time she's losing, or she's suffered a major loss, or somebody smacks her up, or she's been embarrassed by a major event that took place that showed that she had lapses in her military power, then she wants to communicate. That irrational thought somehow calms down a little bit to rationality. And then she wants to talk and negotiate and this and that. That's why she wanted the ABM treaties, because she had fallen behind Russia by over a decade in missile technology. And once they felt that they were no longer a decade behind Russia, and they were maybe a year or two behind Russia, or even its peer, then they threw the ABM treaty out the window. And every other treaty they do that. So they only stall for time. That's what they do. They don't negotiate in good faith. They use negotiation as a tactic to get them in a position where they can become your peer or your dominant power, so that they no longer need that which constrained you.
Now, these Americans with these treaties and stuff, they never live up to their agreements.
Not one of them.
Just ask the American Indian. Hundreds and hundreds of treaties, broke every last one of them. Now, if that's in her core from when she was being born, why in the world would she be fair with anybody else? Why would she ever live up to her agreements when that's what she was based upon? Deception.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier when we first started the show. And you were talking about how the Western media hypes up, Kiev will be in Moscow in a matter of hours or days. And this goes on day after day after day after day. And then when Russia did a partial mobilization, that proves to you that Russia is losing. But they didn't say that Russia only had roughly like 30,000, 40,000 troops there. And what they were doing was calling up some so that they can shore up the thin lines on the battlefield, and also hold territory that they have, and then have enough troops then to push on an offensive. And they didn't tell you that how many drafts have Ukraine had? in the last 6, 7 months. They've had dozens
From
of
what
them.
they
As a matter of
grabbing
fact,
people off the streets.
yeah, as a matter of fact, it is so dire with the Ukrainian military now that they have now issued a statement. You can look this up. I'm not lying. And they've issued a decree that women who are military age cannot leave Ukraine anymore unless under extreme circumstances, because they're now getting ready to draft Ukrainian women. See what America does. I'm telling you, bro. Can't nobody tell no lies like the West, brother. I'm telling you, they
She
can
is the
lie.
top. She
They
is
can
the top.
lie.
What does scriptures call her? The arch deceiver.
Yeah, they can lie, and they can make up seams down, right seams wrong, in seams out, and that's a hell of a way to lie, bro. Um, and we're watching
Well, let me put it this way: she has no equals in lying.
yeah, or like Joe Biden, who looks to the camera. I have publicly told and privately told Russia that America would defend every inch of NATO territory, and if they do X, Y, and Z, then we will immediately respond to X, Y, and Z. I'm like, man, and the people take that hook, line, and sinker. They believe that.
Ukraine is not a part of NATO, right?
Right.
So how can you defend Ukraine? When now they're talking about the little puppet they got, this leader of Ukraine talking about we're gonna fast track ourselves into NATO, as if Russia will sit back and say, "Oh wow, look, we're letting you go into NATO." No, what he done is mean that Russia gonna take all of Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it's looking like. That's what put it like this: if America continues to go along this line of arming Ukraine the way she is, and if NATO continues, Russia will have no other recourse but to bomb NATO territory. Because if you are an imminent threat to me, and all of this, remember now, all of this, the war in Ukraine, all of this is a direct result of American intransigence. She is, what, 6,000 miles away, building, her and Great Britain building military borders in the Sea of Azov, and trying to take the base in Crimea. That's why the coup took place, because America thought that they could take that base in Crimea and remove the Russian presence in the Black Sea.
And they feel that they had Russia buffaloed enough. You know,
Right.
Putin ain't gonna do nothing. What do they call the Russian military? A gas station. Russia is a gas station posing as a country. Their military is nothing. They got nothing. And so the empire thought that she gonna come with her big buff, gonna come and slap Russia down, and Russia have to take what she said. But she has another thing coming. When Russia went into Syria, it threw a shock into the empire. Mm-hmm. You mean they ain't weak? Oh. And when they shot off them missiles from the Caspian Sea and hit Syria, the American empire's aircraft carrying the Persian Gulf skedaddled out of there.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that Russia had been talking, and this is not to say that Russia is innocent in everything that's going on. But what I'm saying is they had been talking to Ukraine, and they had been talking to the U.S. and Great Britain and NATO about the security threats that lies in NATO setting up training bases and Britain. As a matter of fact, when Russia went into Ukraine, one of the first places they bombed and then they took was the naval facilities that the UK was building in the Sea of Azov. That border, that is directly close to Russia. And then they hit in the Donbass. They hit all of the strategic and major NATO bases in the Donbass because America was stocking them with weapons, with missiles. And prior to that, when Russia was forced to do what it did in 2014 when the Viktor Yanukovych was overthrown, it was because of those facilities. And if you look at some think tanks, they said that if they could get into Ukraine, they could prevent Russia from being reemerging as a global threat to the U.S. empire and military power. So they had their eyes on the bases in Crimea. As a matter of fact, for those of you who are listening, if you go Google this, America was doing yearly naval exercises at one of the bases in Crimea because they had an agreement with these governments, and they would be like within looking distance of Russian naval vessels. So
Now
this was at the front. Go ahead.
this shows you the thinking of the empire. They
Right.
way around the world knocking up to Russia's border. Now, if somebody had a military base in Mexico within a stone's throw of America, the media there, oh God, it's the end of the world.
Yeah. But Rashid, I often thought about this, and you and I talked about this multiple times. If I was Russia and I kept warning them and they ignored me, then I would do the same thing to them.
This is
I
true.
have exactly what you have. So
That's
I'll
right.
put me a base over here.
And then they holler about the sanction. Russia don't care nothing about no sanction. The sanction. If you don't do what I said, you will not have McDonald's in your country. You won't have a Big Mac to eat. Well, so what? I can make me my own burger at my own house. Russia needs America. The empire needs Russia more than the empire. Russia needs the empire.
Right.
Russia got all of the gas, all that oil, right? Now they produce more wheat than anybody on the planet. The minerals that one needs to make different equipment. A lot of the Americans' military equipment is made from minerals that come from Russia. What Vladimir Putin ought to do is cut them off.
Yeah.
Cut the water off. If you have a house and somebody cut the water off, you ain't gonna stay there that long, right? Cut the water off, and that'll make the empire. But like we said, the empire is not gonna back up, because if anybody shows her up, the rest of her minions are looking at her, and she gotta escalate. If you slap the empire down, the minions are looking at it and say, well, the emperor didn't fail. We don't have to do what she says.
Yeah.
And then they will start bucking and falling. So the empire is set on her course. She can only see, like we said yesterday, she got them blinders like that horse. Only thing she can see is straight forward, and that means war with everybody.
And to comment on that, you know how they do the straw man argument? If Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, we'll do this and we'll do that. So the little pervert Lindsey Graham, the war hawk, they got a lot. The Israeli Mossad has so much dirt on him. He has to do stuff like that. He's the little walking puppet boy.
He
like
used to be John McCain's sidekick.
Yeah.
Then when John McCain died, now he's Putin's Trump's sidekick.
And so listen, he never misses an opportunity to try to put America into any problem around the world so America can dominate. This is what he says. This is the headline. Nuking Ukraine would be an attack on NATO. First of all, Putin never said, and why would he even need to nuke Ukraine? Putin warned the West that if they intervene, that he would use all weapons available. He didn't say he was going to nuke it. Why would he? That was just like if you and I have an argument and we're fighting, and me and you are blood brothers. Sometimes it escalates to pow, but I'm talking about a rational person. And I'm restrained, and I'm showing restraint to you, even after you have wronged me. What would give you the idea that I'm gonna go to my car and get a 12 gauge and come back in the house and shoot you? If I'm showing restraint to you the whole time, and I'm telling you, listen, you got to get these people out of this house, because this is a threat to my house. I'm right next door to you. We family, and I see them raping my children. I see them planning to kill my wife. I see them planning to go in there and chop off my mom's head. So look, cousin, look,
Would you say?
brother.
And just yesterday, he was caught coming through the bedroom window with a
Yeah,
machete.
yeah, he was caught. And then now I'm telling you, look, I can't look the other way anymore. When you were dealing with him down the street, I kept warning you and him. And then when I saw y'all 6 houses down the street, I kept warning you. Now, brother, because Ukrainians and Russians are so-called Slavic brothers. Now, brother, listen, he's in your house and he's affecting because we share cable. We share the power lines. We share the phone lines. And now you're letting him go in there and he's being able to tap my phone lines to see what time I go to work so he can come in the house and take what I have up in there and then just leave me homeless. So if you don't listen, then I'm going to have to come in here and I'm going to have to clean house myself. And then I go in there and I go and instead of me just bum rushing the whole house, I confine it to one of the bedrooms. And I tell you, see, I told you I was serious now. I'm in here now. Now get them out of here. What would make you think that I'm going back to the car and get now mind you, me and my children are in that room. What would make you think that I'm going back to the car to get gasoline and pull over the house and burn it up with my children inside the house now? That so
Also,
America builds these straw man arguments. They better not use nuclear weapons. Notice they always put on others what they threaten others with.
and
Notice
and
that.
and remember, around the world, nobody on the planet has ever used nuclear weapons but him.
Except him and NATO.
America.
And NATO.
Yeah, America and NATO, and also I'm gonna pull it. I'll get you with my nuclear weapon, as if Russia can't shoot back.
Yeah.
Russia got this hypersonic missile that flies 10 to 15 times the sound. You have no defense against it. And it shows you how psychopathic these people is. I'll bomb you. What? You don't get bombed too. Like I said before, Russia got a weapon, one of these nuclear silo bombs that can, from New York to Atlanta, 3 parts of this missile got warheads because they got multiple warheads, can kill everybody from New York to Atlanta. And that's just one weapon, one nuclear missile. And what you gonna do if they shoot back?
Yeah.
You think Russia gonna sit back there and say, "Oh, he's bombing me. I can't do anything. I'm so petrified. I can't even move." Yeah. No, Russia gonna hit you and hit you hard. But don't worry about that. Nothing is gonna happen to America
right now
until God comes after.
That's right. Now I want to go back to something.
One nuclear bomb will hit America.
Not one of them.
Until the Lord of the world deals with her.
That's right. Not one nuclear. So the nuclear war will take place, but it'll be in Europe. It will not be in America. But I want to say something. I want to go back to something because this is very important because nobody touches on this and everybody often leaves, whether purposely or unknowingly, leaves these main facts out. We just addressed that America is the only nation to use nuclear weapons, but the only organization to use them is NATO. When I interviewed Cynthia McKinney years ago, and she was telling me about what was going on because I was supposed to be a part of the fact-finding commission that was going into Libya before America, really did what she did, and she was telling me about how they were using depleted uranium rounds, which are some what you call bullet nuclear weapon. That's what it is. That's what bullet nuclear weapons. Most people don't understand this, and how in Iraq was littered with contamination from NATO's depleted uranium that was fired on them in Afghanistan. And she told me that America used
affecting the people of Ukraine. I mean, the people of Iraq are still affected with these weapons. You ought to see some of the birth defects. I was looking at one picture. Yeah, mutation. They had one child was born with one eye on his forehead, a cyclops. And
Yeah.
inside of the eye, they had two little eyes in it. It was hideous looking.
Yeah.
And in
And
America, sit over there giggling and laughing.
so most people don't know this, and they use low yield nuclear, like what they
Nuclear
call
weapons.
battlefield tactical, because you hear them often talk about tactical weapons. They used tactical nuclear weapons, low yield, on the battlefield. A matter of fact, when I get a chance to, I may try to convert that to audio and put it on this so that they can hear it for themselves. Now, also, so America not only used it on Japan, she has used it in Afghanistan. She's used it in Libya. She's used it in Iraq. And the only reason she
Didn't
hasn't
they do it
used
in
it in
Syria too?
Syria, uh, no,
Haven't they done it in Syria?
she started to, but she, Russia intervened. You understand? She used something of the like, but she didn't use tactical weapons then, tactical nuclear weapons, because this
When
would
they
have
hit,
affected the Russian soldiers, and then Russia would have been
when they hit,
forced to take that as
when
a
they
nuclear
hit
hit.
Beirut, blew up the ports and all that. That was a
Yeah,
nuclear weapon.
yeah, yeah. That was a, a low yield nuclear weapon that blew up the grain storage ports and stuff like that. You know, but most people don't. They don't understand because the Western news gloss over this. They don't want you to know that America stop. They want you to think that America only used battlefield nukes to stop Japan.
Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute. If CNN don't report it, do it actually really happen?
Yeah, brother.
If the MSN don't report it, then it really didn't happen. That's what most people think. And if to sit up and watch some of that new that they call news is absolutely a joke. I
Yeah,
mean, you be sitting up and saying, "Who in the world can lie this good?" Well, America, Putin is being driven out. They're losing everything all over the place. Any minute now, the Ukrainian army is going to push them all out of Ukraine at any second. And you be saying, who in the hell believes this stuff?
I just read some in this article. As you were talking, I just read some in this article with Lindsey Graham, and I gotta read this, man, because it goes right along with what you just said. These people are delusional, and if you hit Russia with a nuclear weapon, you think they're gonna stand by and just let you hit them? I want to direct people to the interview with former CIA analyst Larry Johnson on our page on YouTube. In there, we talk when because but Rashid, he had some private business he had to take care of, so he couldn't make it to the show that day. But we're gonna try to have Larry back on. He said he'll be back on. Um, in that interview, Larry Johnson talked about he and I talked about the missile defense systems of Russia and how they are the best globally. And then he made mock of the U.S. missile defense system, and he said that and I'm paraphrasing, but you can go listen to this. He said that even if America were to shoot missiles and try to nuke Russia, maybe one or two or a few may get through. He said, but because of Russia's technology, her air defense systems, they really have practically a shield that would take out most of all of NATO's nuclear weapons. But the retaliation, he said, all of Russia's missiles would get through to the United States. Now, I said that, and I'm going to let Rashid comment on that. So keep this in mind after I read this part of the article, okay? Remember what I just said, and I'm giving you a reference point to go to the interview we did about a week ago with CIA analyst Larry C. Johnson, okay? Now, on this article about Lindsey Graham, the title of it is Nuking Ukraine Would Be an Attack on NATO, U.S. Senator says. Senator Lindsey Graham warned Russia that using nuclear weapons in Ukraine would provoke a massive retaliation from NATO. Stop right there. This is the straw man theory. If you say something, if you can create uh, the thought of this happening, right? And then you constantly say it over and over again. And when it doesn't happen, then you can say, our deterrence worked. Even though Russia had never said that they would use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, but you hear all of these these leaders of the United States and the West says, if Russia uses nuclear weapons, then this and this and this. That's the straw man argument. You build up this fallacy, and the people are watching you to see that if you will respond, and you knowing that Russia has no intentions of doing that, so when it doesn't respond, you can lean to and say, see, our deterrence, our firm policies and our deterrence cause Russia not to use nuclear weapons. Let's go a little further. It says, any Russian use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine would be the equivalent of an attack on NATO itself, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham declared on Thursday, adding it would be met with a catastrophic response. Stop right there. Let's go a little further. I want to go to the next paragraph. Before you chime in, Rashid, it's something else that you need to chime in on. That's what I'm trying to get to. Then it says, speaking during a joint press conference with Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, Graham noted that in such an attack, the radiation would not be confined to Ukraine. You would be radiating parts of Europe that are under NATO banner, the NATO banner. If that day ever comes, look, he goes from a surety that Russia would use them to now he's conjecturing that maybe NATO might, maybe Russia might use them. He went from a surety to conjecture. If that day ever comes, if ifs was fifths, we'd all be drunk, right? It's a if that day ever comes, and I hope and praise it doesn't, a nuclear strike should be considered by NATO NATO writ large and the United States as an attack by Russia on NATO itself, he said. If Russian President Vladimir Putin did use nuclear weapons, see, here we go again, from the assurity to the conjecture, meaning he went from knowing that Russia was contemplating to now if Russian President Vladimir Putin did use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, the U.S. and its allies would have to devise, listen to this, an overwhelming response that would be catastrophic for Moscow, Grant says. Now, before you chime in, let me throw this in just for good sport. Russia has more nuclear weapons than the United States and all of NATO combined. Now, what overwhelming catastrophic consequences could you put on Russia that it could not throw back on you? Double time. Now you can chime in.
Well, it shows you the insanity of these. A politician is just somebody that just runs his mouth, just run all over the place. His mouth is just running. The military wing of America knows not to do this because that'd be the end of both of them. There's no winner in a nuclear war. There's no winner. I was watching reading an article where he was saying that where the nuclear bomb hits, the instant the temperature would be 9 million degrees. Now, how and the post silly people of Europe, I want to be in NATO. Yeah, everybody gonna. Don't you think Russia gonna hit you too? You start slinging nuclear weapons left and right, then your main city is going to be ground zero for one of those Russian bombs. And like you said, Russia has the S-400, and now they got the S-500. The S-400 is so known in the circles of the military that the F-35, the Americans' great fighter jet, don't want to have it to be nowhere in the vicinity of the S-400. Now they got the S-500, who's an upgrade from that. And as you said, the America ain't got what they got, the Patriot missile. It hit and it may not hit. Just ask the Saudis about the Patriot missile. The Iranian drone, they sent the Iranians, gave the Yemenis the technology, and none of the Patriot missiles could hit any of the drones. They couldn't hit nothing.
Yeah.
But here you are, you sitting over here selling wolf tickets. Oh, you bet not. And you got Nothing to back it up with. Nothing. That Kinzo missile, what flies 10 times the speed of sound? America ain't got nothing like that. America, they can hit anywhere in NATO that they want. The only reason why they're doing it, the Russian leadership is not insane. NATO and the empire's leadership are insane madmen. They want to stay in power, and they're willing to do anything to do it. And she cannot stop because she see her fall. And if go on.
Oh, and one thing else, I want you to keep your thought on what you said because I want you to continue this. I wanted to interject that not only are they insane and they see their fall, but they're willing to do anything because they have such a hatred for Russia that they don't want Russia to exist as a state because Russia is like a little over 2 times the size of the United States with unmeasurable resources and stuff. Yeah.
And they're jealous of that. What did Hillary Clinton say? They got too much land.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody should take it from them.
Mm-hmm.
All them natural resources and stuff, and we ain't got. It's the same thing when the European came out of Europe. You seen everybody else had land and stuff and resources. So, what do you call this? Divine right of king. I'm taking it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop me, so I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna bomb up and rape and rob and steal. Can you imagine that? Australia. The people of Australia don't come from, are not native to that land. They come from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They stole that land and murdered and enslaved the people.
And used it as a penal colony.
Yeah. Same thing with America was a penal colony.
Yes.
Really, to tell you the truth, America, the founding fathers, was a bunch of criminals.
Yeah. I spoke on that. George Washington had an arrest warrant out for him in Europe.
He was a fugitive from justice in Europe.
So they leave this part and then out in the history books.
And then they went and got all of the refuge from Europe, all of the criminals, the thieves, the cutthroats, the pedophiles, the murderers, the rapists, and sent them all over to Australia and America.
And New Zealand.
And then they put on airs about how good did it. Oh, I'm an American. You're a crook, a thief, and a murderer. As we said before, the scriptures teach us about building your house on a bloody foundation. Now, if the God of the universe is a righteous and justice God, what do you think he's going to do for these people that went around the world raping, robbing, and stealing? Do you think God is going to bless them or destroy them? See, this is why you see.
I'm sorry. This is one thing. This goes back to my point that I was making on all shows. America and the Western world believe that they are the exception to God's rules. They believe that they'll tell you in science the laws of cause and effect. They'll tell you that any reaction will receive a equal or greater reaction. And then when you say, well, what about all of the chaos and murder and robbing and the bombing and warring that you have committed? Oh, but we did it for just, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. What do you mean it doesn't count? You're telling me the lives of millions and millions of people, the sanctity of life does not matter? You're telling me that the security of the nations that you broke up does not matter? Then if it does not matter, then you can say that God is a hypocrite. It doesn't matter. So you mean he's going to punish me for going into the store when I'm hungry, putting a piece of candy in my pocket to put in my mouth to keep the stomach monsters from being on me, being hungry. And I get punished, but you can go and pillage and rob state after state, country after country, and all and it doesn't count? Come on. I mean, it's crazy.
He just went. He boasts that he just went and stole this country. I stole so and so, Iraq. What is it, 50 million people? Yeah, they're gonna be working for me for 50 from now on. You call yourself a thief. You are a little small ant compared to him. he's a gray whale of stealing.
Yeah, I'm telling.
The biggest animal on the planet. When he steals nations.
Yes, yes. He's trying to do it in Ukraine.
Yeah.
He's done it all across the globe, and he continues to do it. And I want to get to something. So we go back to this pipeline thing because I got an email and somebody wanted to address. They liked how we were addressing it, but I want to go to this article on RT, and it talks about Vladimir Putin, what he said, who's the culprit is, and the name of it is Putin names chief suspect for Nord Stream attack. And in this article, it reads as such: sanctioning Russia is no longer enough for the Anglo-Saxons, the president claimed. The US and UK orchestrated the blast on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea, which delivered Russian gas to Germany, because they obviously benefit from it, President Vladimir Putin insisted on Friday. Putin accused Washington of trying to pressure the EU into banning Russian supplies to completely get his hands on the European market. But the sanctions are no longer enough for the Anglo-Saxons, he said, using Russian shorthand for the US and UK transatlantic alliance. They have turned to sabotage. It's unbelievable, but it's a fact. By organizing the explosions on the Nord Stream international gas pipelines, the president stated, they de facto began the destruction of the coming European energy infrastructure. It's obvious to everyone who benefits from it. Those who benefit are the ones who have done it. Stop right there. Isn't that one of the main things in detective work? You rule out the people who does not get a great benefit from it, and then you focus on the ones who get the greatest benefit from it, and then from that you do a deduction to see who had the opportunity and the motive to do it, and then you check their history, and then you come up with your conclusion on who you think is the culprit or the suspect, and then you bring charges against that culprit or suspect and arrest them. Is that not right?
I was listening to one of the guys on the internet, and he was interviewing some guy from Europe, and he was this guy from Europe was the reason why Putin then bombed the Ukraine that pipeline. All Russia had to do is turn it off.
Yes, it was already turned off.
They could stop it from, but they want to put a false scenario against us and make Europe mad at us. All Russia had to do is just turn the spigot off. You had to bomb nobody, but they can go and do it. But if Russia do it, they did it, and they like I was listening to a RT, and they were saying that they didn't deny, what was going on. They didn't deny it. They just said it's ludicrous. What if Russia went and bombed this new pipeline that's going into Poland? Huh? And the little stupid Poland. You are ground zero for the nuclear. Europe is ground zero. They aligning themselves with somebody 5,000-6,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Against Russia when Russia right next door.
Yeah.
Does that make good sense?
But
you go nuclear bomb.
Listen, how can you make sense with a people, a nation, or a government, or a organization of irrational people, bro? You ask the question and say, does that make sense to them? Because they are detached from reality and detached from rational thinking. It makes perfect sense until it doesn't, and then they'll go to the next irrational line of thinking, and that'll make perfect sense until it doesn't. That's what insane people do. They do insane things. I want to follow up that article because I want you to comment on this. This is another article on RT, and it is the title of it is U.S. treats masochist allies like enemies. Putin says. Now I want to read this because it has a lot of stuff in there that's pretty. It's a short article, so y'all bear with us, but it has some tangible stuff to show you Russia's new views of America. Because they remember, you and I, we talked about this all the time. America used to do dirt in Russia. All Russia would say, our Western allies, our Western partners, right?
I haven't seen Putin say that here lately, have it?
See,
He ain't
see,
talking about our partners.
yeah, see, not even Lavrov have been saying it. And he used to say our Western colleagues, our Western allies, our Western partners. None of that is being said anymore. I pay attention to this stuff. So let's listen to the frame of thought of the Russian government by getting into the mind of Putin by reading this article. And it reads as such: citizens of Western countries are spared from U.S. dictatorship, aren't spared from U.S. dictatorship, the Russian president warned. Speaking in Moscow on Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that the collective West seeks to rule the world with an iron fist, not sparing even the masochists whom it calls allies, but mistreats as much as the declared enemies, which we talked about. They treat enemies and allies alike. But let's go further. U.S. dictates are backed by brute force, the law of the fist, Putin said, adding that any state that aspires to genuine sovereignty is declared an enemy and subjected to deterrence, quote unquote deterrence, ring with military bases and alliances or sanctions. When they are displeased, they introduce sanctions against their allies as well. Look at Turkey. Look what Turkey's going through. Against this or that bank or company. This is their practice and they will expand it. They have everything in their sights. In launching the sanctions blitzkrieg against Russia, the West was blinded by its own wishful thinking, believing the world would fall in line at its command. But as it turns out, the orders only excited, right? Excited. And then in parentheticals, it says complete political masochists and admirers of other unconventional forms of international relations, the president says, meaning that the sanctions blitzkrieg against Russia, instead of putting fear in other nations, what it did is showed them that they need to be more in a rush to exit the dollar, pound, and euro dominated financial scheme. So let's go further. He says, while he did not name the political masochists earlier in the speech, Putin noted that the U.S. actually continues to occupy Germany. Didn't we say that? Japan? Didn't we say that? The Republic of Korea? Didn't we say that? And other countries, which they cynically refer to as equals and allies, while spying on the homes and offices of their leaders, calling it a disgrace for those who do this and for those who, like slaves, silently and meekly swallow this arrogant behavior. The dictatorship of Western elites targets all societies, including the citizens of Western countries themselves. He noted that politicians in Europe now have to convince their fellow citizens to eat less, to take shower less often, and dress warmer at home, while declaring anyone who dares to act wild, radical, and extremist, falsely pointing to Russia as the culprit. But people cannot be fed with printed dollars and euros. This is what Putin said. Regardless of how much you blame us, people cannot be fed with printed dollars and euros. You can't be fed with those pieces of paper and the virtual. He's talking about that made up stuff that you were talking about yesterday on the computer. He says, and the virtual inflated capitalization of Western social media companies can't heat their home. Now, stop right there. There's more to that, but there's a lot to unpack right here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back up in the article. And we're going to get to this point where he says, U.S. dictates are backed by brute force, the law of the fist. Now, listen, let us see if what he's saying is a lie. Because Blinken said, oh, I don't give any credence to this. And remember how we constantly tell you that America's foreign policy is a reflection of her domestic policy. How does the American police force govern inner cities? How does the American police force govern suburbs with people of color in it? With brute force, with no understanding a lot of the time. That is the same thing she does to foreign nations. Either you do what I say because the law don't apply to you, or I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you where it hurts at, and I'm going to do it hard and over and over and over again. And because I have the power to withstand political outcries, I don't care what people have to say. I'll do it again. Isn't that how she does it? So let's go a little further now. And he said, let's go back down. He says, adding that any state that aspires to genuine sovereignty is declared an enemy and subjected to quote unquote deterrence. Venezuela, right? We're going to deter Libya from ever thinking about getting a weapon of mass destruction. We're going to deter Nicaragua and El Salvador and Grenada and all of these nations.
Iran. I was
Yeah.
listening to an article today. Read an article today where they were talking about that Stanford made up that program article about how America goes around on the internet and stirs up trouble in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
She has what they call tools or bots on the internet, yes, making up lies. In Iran, the Ayatollah is getting paid to send stuff into Ukraine. The Ayatollah just lying, and then she has an army of disinformation. She got hundreds and thousands of guys. She pay them, all they do is just. It reminded me that article that was in Muhammad Speaks newspaper, and it was saying that the American government had a lie making center. Okay, mm-hmm. We want you to make up a lie, and the guy said, "Well, what kind of a lie? A great big one, a small one, or a medium-sized lie? What kind?" And he's the lie center of the planet. Mm-hmm. He lies on top of lies. And he can destroy your society because the people are not up to him and his dirty tricks, and that's why they're having all of that problem over in Iran now. The empire, of course, you got the Shah's people in there, the people who wanted the Shah, because they never left. They hate that the Ayatollahs took over. The people that love the, if the Ayatollah hadn't took over, you would have had sex shops in Iran, pedophiles running around, homosexuals all over the place, right? Pimps, robbers, thieves. You might have a little bit of that, but on a massive scale, they be having porno movies all over in Iran. The empire's evils, he spreads it to others. He just don't sit up there and he just not evil. He want everybody else to be evil, mm-hmm. Right? And if you do not stop him, he'll take over your society and ruin your country.
Now, we're gonna go to another part.
One point before I forget about it, that he wanted to sit up there and talk about that Russia have to sell his gas to Europe. What Russia did was, okay, you don't want none of our gas? Okay, we turn to the east and send it to them. They'll take in abundance. So it shows you the mindset. If you don't sell us your stuff, then Russia's about to collapse because they need our oil. All of the currency in Russia is rubles. They don't trade in the euro or the dollars. The ruble is what's turning in Russia. So if they don't need no dollars and stuff, it's fine because it's not used in Russia. As far as foreign currency, you can ship it over. China is the manufacturer of the world, mm-hmm. Right? I can get everything I need from China. I don't need to get nothing from you. See, that's the mindset of the American. If you don't let us drive our BMWs, then your car industry is going collapse, or your mama or Mercedes Benz. He thinks that he's greater than what he really is.
Mm-hmm. And what it is, when they pulled out the car industry, Iran went in because Iran has a strong car manufacturing capability, and they replaced some of the Western companies in the market in Russia. But I want to
And
get
you
to
said it
something.
yourself that China is the biggest car producer on the planet.
Yeah, they're
They
probably the
don't
biggest
need
producers in everything.
if you don't get if you're not riding around in a Mercedes Benz, then you're really not right. He's he he thinks that he's a legend in his own mind. He thinks that everything West is great. We see that that's not happening anymore. The world is rejecting this guy on a massive scale. Like you said yesterday, that the BRICS nations are now coming up with an alternative reserve currency. When they put that into effect, look for the empire to fall and fall hard.
Yeah, and back to like with America and her policies, and Russia and Iran and what they were going through. Had they been a little bit sharper, a lot of this, but we know prophecy has to be fulfilled. But I'm just saying, if you just look at things from a rational point, had they gotten together early and forgot about the differences in them, they could have blunted a lot of this stuff that America was putting on them. But instead, Russia allowed Iran to go under sanctions. Russia allowed America to sanction Libya. All of these nations that were sanctioned, now Russia,
North Korea,
yeah,
all he, like I said before, Putin didn't come to this Jesus moment until it happened to him. Right?
That's right.
When it
That's
happened
right.
to him, now he jumped up there. He's telling the truth, but it was true when he was alive with them.
That's right.
Right? When he was going lockstep in line with it, whatever the illegal or corrupt stuff that the empire was putting on everybody else. It took the empire coming after him for him to see the light. Actually, right. These are some evil people. Well, yeah, they were evil before you started it. Mm-hmm. Before they started, when they, like you said, when it was coming at, bombing up everybody all over the place, laughing, and when he was bombing Laos and bombing Korea and bombing Vietnam, he was evil then.
Yeah,
but he didn't come out. No leader has come out, or global leader has come out and telling what Putin is doing now. Putin is telling the truth, but Putin is being forced to do this.
That's right. That's the point I was making. Those are the points that I was trying to get out. They could have done this with all of those sanctioned nations, but they wanted too much to be a part of the West. It took the West showing how they truly felt about Russia for Russia to, and then they still paused after and got slapped in the face a few times, thinking that maybe we can make up with it. And now they realize that it is too far gone, and now they are in these alliances and trying to oust the dollar and trying to get past that. But before I'll go into another article, I want to go back to something that he said in this article, because it directly relates to what you had been saying yesterday on the show. When Putin says, but people cannot be fed with printed dollars and euros. You can't feed them with those pieces of paper. And the virtual inflated capitalization of Western social media companies can't heat their homes. Stop right there. Rashid was telling y'all that America opens up a computer and then types in numbers, and then she assigns a value to this and value to that. This is what Putin is talking about. And all of these, and we talked about this on multiple shows about these social media platforms and all of these companies with these inflated wealth, like
Twitter,
atmosphere. Yeah, like Google,
Facebook's $10 trillion is worth.
Apple is worth 1.5 trillion. America just assigns that to them. It's not that they have the actual working capacity of that. Do you notice, again, to show you what I'm saying, do you notice these rich people uh, what is his name? Zuckerberg, Gates, uh, Musk. Do you notice when their company stocks go down, their net value go down also? Do you know that? Do you know why is that? Because they don't actually have that amount of money on hand. How they are projected to be so wealthy is they have a certain amount of cash, they have certain amount of backers, and their company is given an estimated value or worth. And so with all that added in, they say, "Oh, he's worth $400 billion." But if you ask him to show you $400 billion, he can't do it because he does not have that.
You know what this remind me of? The Wizard of Oz, right? The guy behind the scenes making all of the deal, and then when you pull the curtain back, he's a little bitty guy right there.
Yeah,
That's exactly
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. And this and most people don't understand it. Oh, I'm worth 40 billion. Well, if you put your wealth, if you put your worth in monetary form, what if the wealth ceased to be valuable? Are you valueless? Are you worthless? You have to understand that this is a international game that is being played by the West to try to continue to keep the economic situation going on, going on. And they
It's
do
like
it
what
by printing, and they do it also by typing on a keyboard. That's why they're
it's
so in a
like
rush to go. I'm sorry, but this is why they're so in a rush to go digital. It'll make it easier for them to tap in how much they're gonna give you. Go ahead.
now here's Iran that's supposed to be broke. They ain't got no money. Iran got the maybe the fourth or fifth oil reserves on the planet. Iran's gas, natural gas, is second only to Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
If anything, they are the ones that should have the money, and those countries that produce nothing should be broke. Does that make sense? They can't buy a ice cream cone. But what do you got? Well, actually, I got no natural resources at all. But I'm rich, right? Rich in
Right.
what? As he what you just talking about, typing on a computer and saying that you're rich, or some of that fiat money that ain't worth it. Once again, money is nothing unless it's backed up by something.
Right.
If I can go and get this money, it's got to have an equal value in material or precious metal. This is the reason why America had to get off the gold standards with Charles de Gaulle back in the 70s. He had no more gold. And so he was telling, what did Nixon tell our currency just as good as gold? So Charles de Gaulle said, well, then if it's as good as gold, then give me the gold. And so he called Nixon's bluff, and Nixon had to get off the dollar. And from that point on, it's been nothing but printed up paper. It's valueless. What did Jim Willie say? Well, one guy was saying, well, what about their gold and Fort Knox? And Jim Willie said, we got a bucket of gold coins over there, but it's gone. Even Paul Craig Roberts said the same thing. It's gone. Well, where's America's gold at? It's all in China. You don't think the Chinese are going to be sending all of them shiploads of containers over here to America and not get nothing in return for it, do you? I work in the industry. Some of those ships have 10, 15, 20, and now 25,000 containers on one ship. I didn't say 2,500, 25,000 containers of stuff, goods is being brought in here. It's constantly being brought in, constantly being grown. It's got to the point since the COVID crisis, even the grains and farm products that was being shipped over, America was shipping out. They set that to the side, loaded what's going on with America is mainly empty containers to bring most stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
Her economic, her manufacturing base is gone. Like one article was saying, well, who, to come back over here and start making all of this stuff in America, who has the technology to make a television? Who has the technology to make a cell phone? Who has the technology to make a washing machine? Who has the technology to make a tractor almost now? Everything has been taken away from here. Nothing is here. If he went to when he went to war with in World War II, right? He switched Ford, Chrysler, General Motors. They stopped shipping, making cars, and retooled to make tanks and stuff like that, right? Rifles and all of the war equipment. When they go to war now, they got no industry. How in the world are they gonna fight anybody with no industry to make nothing? Like we're saying about Ukraine, right? Ukraine is all of America, the European Union, all of them pouring billions of stuff, all of their weapons into Ukraine, and Russia say, "Go, come, thank you," and he's blowing it all up. But they have no industry to replace it with.
Right.
See, you got to look through the crap of what Lindsay run around. We're gonna do this. You got to look past that stuff, because a politician will say anything. Never trust the politician's words. He'll say anything under the planet. How in the world are you going to sit back and resupply yourself? If all of your weapons and stuff with Russia has an economic base where he manufactures these things for himself. He manufactures all of the weapons. Well, I was hearing the other day was talking about the Russia and the hypersonic missiles. He's depleted with it now. They make it. They don't need anyone else to help them make it. They can make it. What they say, the Russian war industry is constantly turning out. They working 3 shifts a day. But you, America, remember what we were saying. America's a lot of their equipment comes from around the world. You want to go to war with Russia, and when a lot of your military equipment comes, Russia makes the material. I mean, China then makes the material for it. How in the world are you going?
I was hearing one analyst. He says that Russia fired more heavy weapons ammo in one day, right, than the U.S. and Europe makes. I think he said within a year or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. That's crazy. That is crazy.
And they talk about the Ukrainian army is going. They just got a whole bunch of people killed. What did they say? In one day they lost 10,000 people or better. Well, that's a lot of people to just you send them in there, and Russia just hit them with their artillery and wiped out whole divisions of people. But yet and still Russia is losing now. You listen, like I said, you listen to CNN, any second now the Russia is going to collapse. Paid liars.
Yeah.
You can't believe anything these people. Go on,
and on the lines of what you're saying about the money and everything else, here's another another article from RT, and it says Beijing orders state banks. Remember, I told you this on Patreon, and I told you this a few days ago, long before they came out with this article. Somebody whispered in my ear and told me, and I told Rashid. It says Beijing orders state banks to get ready for massive dollar dump. I knew that a few days ago before it ever came out in the news. And it says the Chinese authorities are reportedly striving to shore up the yuan. China has told state-run financial institutions to prepare to sell off their dollar holdings while stocking up on offshore yuan as Beijing tries to bolster the national currency, Reuters reported on Thursday, citing sources with knowledge of the matter. The simultaneous dumping of the US dollar and purchasing of the yuan are expected to avoid further drops in Chinese currency, which is currently on track for the biggest annual loss versus the greenback in nearly 3 decades. So far this year, the yuan has dropped over 11% against the dollar. The unnamed source told the agency that the scale of this round of dollar selling to defend the weakening yuan is expected to be, quote unquote, rather large. China's offshore yuan, which moves in lockstep with onshore yuan, saw a rebound of about 200 pips on the news. The trading volume of offshore yuan accounts for about 70% of all yuan FX trading globally. Now, stop right there. I said that to say this. Remember, we just had an announcement a few days ago that the BRICS were getting ready, they were formulating a plan for a alternative currency, right? Remember that, Rashid?
We have
Okay.
been saying that for how many years have we been saying that that's what they should do?
Oh man, it goes back. It goes back a long time. And now look, do you think it's a coincidence that China is now preparing banks to sell off a large portion of the dollar holdings that it has to strengthen the yuan? To strengthen it for what? Because I thought a weaker yuan means more exports.
To go in all in on this.
You there? Here we go. StreamYard is playing games again. Every time we get into this, they start
You were
playing these
muffled in
games.
that.
You
Say that
repeat
over
what you
again.
just said. StreamYard
Can you
blocked
hear
you
me?
out. So, yes, I hear you now. Repeat what you just said because StreamYard blocked you out.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Don't forget, tomorrow Lula is back in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, as for Lula in Brazil, do you think he gonna forget that they jailed him?
Mm-hmm.
All steam ahead. What it say? 15 countries are trying to join the BRICS. Israel, Argentina, and Iran then already applied to join the BRICS. Is a stampede out of the dollar.
And Nigeria and other African nations are applying for the membership with the BRICS.
Everybody want to join the BRICS. Who want to join the dollar hegemony? Nobody. Everybody want to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Can't you see the fall of the American empire? Everybody wants to leave it because they see her double standards and her insane apology and her hegemony, and she walking around thinking that she's the king over the world and everybody got I can dictate to everybody else's what to do. I can go over and bomb up everybody, but nobody better not bomb any of me or my allies. The world is getting tired of that stuff.
Yes.
And what they done, listen very carefully. They pushed Putin into this. And now Putin, he ain't in lockstep with the empire. Putin is sitting over there telling the truth on it. Putin is the little child with the fable in the emperor with his clothes, right? Putin is sitting up there saying that, hey man, that guy ain't got on no clothes. And then everybody else is looking around saying, yeah, I guess he don't care. They were buffaloed before to believe what the emperor told them because they were scared of the emperor. But now Putin is telling the truth on them. And the empire is very angry. Very angry. And only thing she can see is, like you say, with a hammer and with a nail. Everything is a hammer. I mean, a nail. To them, they're going to always use hammer. They're going to use too much force on everything, and it's backfiring. Remember, they are the ones that started this. Never forget that.
Mm-hmm. And you know, as you were talking, I was just thinking to myself about Putin's speech. I recommend every one of you to go and listen to his speech that he gave a few days ago. It has English text at
Translate.
the bottom. So, uh, and in it, ironically, as he attacked the empire in the Western world, he went into their history of colonialism, racism, stealing off resources, wealth, and dominating people because of their color and because they had, and just because the West had the might. And I'm telling you, it is very important that you go listen to his speech from a few days ago because he goes hard in about how the Western world could not exist without Africa in Asia, in Latin America's resources, in labor, and brain power. Putin goes into this. He calls in so many words he calls them, and I'm paraphrasing. So many words he calls them racist parasites. This is what he
But
calls them.
even at that, the last messenger of Allah told us that everything Putin's saying
Yeah,
years ago,
yeah,
years
yes,
ago, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, he was telling us everything Putin said in his speech.
yeah. And we're looking at it. We're looking at it right now. I was trying to find something, but I guess we'll close out because it's getting a little late, and we'll try to do another show soon. I want to correct something. I said we'll be doing a live with Kevin Barrett Monday morning. He has to be somewhere Monday morning, so we switched it to the following Monday morning because he has a prior engagement. But we'll try to have another guest on sometime this upcoming week for Patreons first, and then we'll air some of it to YouTube. Hey, go support us, and also please go over and to all of these platforms and join. It's free. Join and let us know that you appreciate how we try to give out this truth. My voice is cracking and breaking up because whenever the weather changes, it happens like that. And I'm telling you, it's a labor to do this. So we thank you for joining us, Rashid. In closing, is there anything that you want to say?
Uh, 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 in your that hurricane didn't damage Pensacola, did it?
No, no, we're in the Panhandle. We're like in the top.
Right next to Alabama.
Yeah, we're roughly like from Mobile, Alabama. You know what Mobile, Alabama is, right?
You see the
We're like 40.
devastation
We're 40 minutes,
that
40 to 50 minutes from Mobile, Alabama.
you see the devastation that was put on Florida. Then you see what we were telling you about. This is the ammunition that God is using against America. Now, only a nuclear bomb could have done what is done to Florida. The devastation is biblical, and then it hit Florida, then went to South Carolina,
Mm.
and that's just one hurricane, one little hurricane. At the end of this society, the Lord of the world said he gonna take 1 year and pull the forces of nature against America to bring Babylon the Great down.
Mhm. We're
We're in it.
watching it. We're
That's
watching
right. We're watching it in living color, as they used to say.
it. So on that note, as we always go out the same way we came in, we go out in the name of God. We thank you all. We say, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous and seek truth from the cradle to the grave, because truth will preserve you in life and in death. We thank you. Peace out. Mama, I love you.